Hey, this episode we're going to talk about a man named Severino Garcia Santa Romana, also known as Father Jose Antonio Diaz de la. What makes him so interesting part of the story is he died in 1973 with $600 million cash in his bank account. Plus he had $1 billion in gold deposit. That was like 264 tons of gold. But many people are speculating, where did he get this money from? So basically, Santa Romana was a Filipino typesetter from San Francisco. And many people believe that he worked for the CIA. And the rumor is he worked with Edward Lansdale, the future CIA director. He was a future CIA director under President Eisenhower, and he was fired under President Kennedy. And after being fired from President Kennedy, he worked for the Black Eagle Trust Fund as a private contractor to the CIA. And the rumor is, reportedly, that the two of them together tortured Yamashita's driver into releasing information where they were able to discover something like 24 sites, burial sites. And the bank accounts were set up, and they were supposed to be fronts for the M Fund and the Black Eagle Trust Fund. And these funds were supposed to be used for special purposes, political purposes, to destabilize governments, help rig elections, because communism was going to become very huge in the future. And so they wanted to destabilize these governments. And so Lansdale got the power of attorney over the bank accounts, but so did Ferdinand Marcos. And when he died, it was a handwritten will. He left money to his wife and his daughter, I believe it was. They never received anything, no portion. So they were fighting many, many, many years over it. And so many people believe that Marcos probably stole a lot of this money here and was blackmailing to receive money. And basically, it was 264 tons of gold at $105 an ounce at that time in 1973. But there was also rumors that he helped the CIA search for gold in Tokyo Bay because there was like $1 billion worth of gold dumped in Tokyo Bay. And Citibank actually swallowed the money. They never paid anything. So to my knowledge, no one knows where that money went to. Another theory is the Vatican Underground. There's a bank account that reportedly was found by some researchers under the name Spiritual White Boy, and it had millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, possibly billions. And they believe this is Santa Romana's also bank accounts while working for the Vatican Underground, since he was also Father de la Paz. And he was working for them on World War II, moving gold around the world. And so they believe that he had bank accounts set up, and billions of dollars were all over in the 1940s. So many people believe that these bank accounts still possibly exist, and Spiritual White Boy is actually the code name for either the Vatican Underground, the Pope, Marcos, or Santa Romana. So there were other accounts found out with Santa Romana. Jose Antonio Diaz de la Paz were other ones, as previously mentioned. And some of the other names on his bank accounts were Furnace Kingfisher, Burst Harbor King, and these are the ones that his wife Luz said that they were actually his names, and she sued Citibank and John Reed, the CEO of Citibank. People believe that during World War II he was a CIA operative and working in the Philippines, like I said, Japan, and he helped MacArthur recover gold in Japan and the Philippines, and he was under the movement called the Vatican Underground. And so basically the Vatican Underground helped move gold around the world and Europe to prevent it from being stolen by the Nazis and the Japanese. But lastly, there's another one called the Club at Rome, which is a group of world citizens sharing common concern for future humanity, heads of states. And so in 1972 they published a thing called Limits of Growth, which they made statements of how they wanted the world to become, like less people on the earth and everything. And they believe he may have been involved in this organization also. But the bottom line is, where did he get 262 tons of gold, or 260 tons of gold, or $1 billion worth of gold. Where did he get $600 million cash? So I do believe the Japanese did steal gold. So the bottom line is, where did he get $600 million and $1 billion worth of gold? So many people believe that, yes, the Japanese did steal gold, and he probably did help find some gold in the beginning. Every time there's a myth or a treasure legend, there's a little bit of truth to it. And the Japanese, like the Nazis, were stealing gold, were pilfering gold, because you do need gold in order to pay for war efforts. And so, yes, there probably were 20, 30 locations of gold, and it was probably found, and the CIA decided, we're going to keep this gold in order to help pay back for our war efforts, because they actually billed Japan $1 billion for the war efforts. There's another one called the Cult of Gold in Japan, where they actually were trying to get as much gold as possible. And I will talk about that later. So that's going to do this episode. Thank you.